to go after his daddy with the baby in his hand with the pitchfork after his daddy. I grabbed the pitchfork and he said, "I'll hit you with it too." And I just yanked it away from him and got it away from him because he only had one.
The scene depicted is not the beginning of a conflict, but the violent culmination of a mental health crisis spiraling out of control. It represents the breaking point in a domestic situation fraught with psychological distress, substance abuse, and escalating aggression. The root of this terrifying moment began earlier, with a series of alarming events that prompted a desperate call for help. The man at the center of this storm, the child's father, had been exhibiting increasingly erratic and dangerous behavior. His partner reveals a deeply troubled history, a man wrestling with diagnosed PTSD and schizophrenia. His instability was further compounded by a recent relapse into drug use, pushing him over the edge. The situation had intensified dramatically in the preceding days. The man's partner had received a video from him, a chilling visual of him with a noose around his neck, threatening suicide. This was not a cry for attention but a clear signal of a severe psychological breakdown. Concerned for his safety, she went to his house to de-escalate the situation and offer support. However, her attempt at intervention was met with paranoia and aggression. Instead of finding solace, she found herself a captive. The man, in a state of extreme agitation, screwed the door shut, trapping her inside with him overnight. This act transformed a domestic home into a prison, isolating them from any outside help, and leaving her to navigate his volatile moods alone. The next morning, understanding the immediate danger, she managed to leave and sought to retrieve their child, knowing he was not in a stable condition to be a caregiver. This necessary action would become the catalyst for the day's violent eruption. When she arrived with the man's own father to get the baby, the fragile peace was shattered, and the conflict ignited into a physical and emotional firestorm.
Because he sent me a video of him, which I have it on my phone, of him with a noose around his neck, threatening to kill himself. So I come over here to talk to him and check on him and try to talk to him.
The arrival of his father was meant to be a stabilizing presence, but it instead acted as a spark on gasoline. The man perceived their attempt to take the baby as a betrayal, a confirmation of his paranoid fears. A verbal argument quickly devolved into a physical altercation between father and son. On the living room couch, the two men fought, a desperate struggle with the older man trying to contain his son's explosive rage. Overpowered by his manic strength, the son broke free and began to destroy the house, throwing objects in a blind fury. The violence then took a more sinister turn. He stormed out of the house only to return moments later brandishing a knife, making direct threats. The situation escalated even further when he produced a handgun, a stark symbol of how dangerously the confrontation had veered. In this chaotic environment, with weapons now in play, he grabbed his infant child, using the baby as an unwitting shield or a desperate anchor to his unraveling reality. His partner, witnessing this terrifying sequence, made a calculated decision to ensure the baby's safety. As the two men continued to fight, she took the infant and went outside, creating distance from the immediate danger. She tried to reason with him, urging him to go to a separate dwelling on the property to cool down. For a moment it seemed to work. As he walked away, she retreated back inside, locking the doors behind her, believing she had secured a safe space for herself and the child. This sense of security was tragically short-lived. Realizing he was locked out and separated from his child and partner, the man's rage intensified. He circled the house and, with immense force, kicked the door in, splintering the frame and shattering any illusion of safety. He hunted for them through the house, his single-minded goal to find them. When he located them in a room, he forcibly took the baby from the mother's arms. Terrified, she fled and hid in a pantry, a helpless witness to her partner's complete psychological collapse. It was in the aftermath of this home invasion that the confrontation with the pitchfork occurred, a desperate act of aggression against his father who was still trying to intervene.
I come in and I lock both the doors behind me. And I went and hid in the room with the baby because we all know how he is.
Okay.
When he found out that I wasn't outside and I wasn't coming down here, he kicked the door in, searching for me and the baby. When he found us in the room, he took the baby from me.
When law enforcement arrived, they found a complex and volatile scene. The man, still holding his baby, presented himself not as an aggressor, but as a victim. He engaged with the officers, attempting to frame the narrative around his own perceived injustices. He recounted the physical fight with his father, claiming he was merely defending himself from an unprovoked attack. He painted a picture of a lifelong conflict with his parents, suggesting their demand for an apology was the trigger for the violence. From his perspective, he was being unfairly targeted after he had been assaulted. He meticulously detailed the altercation, from the initial argument to being pinned on the couch, insisting his actions, including swinging a baby walker at his father, were purely in self-defense. This narrative reveals a deep-seated feeling of persecution, a mind unable to process its own role in the escalating chaos. He was trapped in a cycle of blame, deflecting all responsibility for the terror he had inflicted on his family.
So, you defend yourself.
I defend myself. He has me on that couch beating the f*** out of me while I'm down. Done told the man twice I was done. And he kept hitting me.
The situation was further complicated by a history of intervention from Child Protective Services. Both parents admitted that CPS had previously been involved, recommending that they not be alone with the child together due to their tumultuous relationship. A supervised setting was required if they were to co-parent simultaneously. This crucial detail adds another layer to the conflict. The man felt he was a capable single parent, but that his partner was unstable, citing instances where she allegedly threatened to abandon the child. Conversely, the woman and other witnesses argued that he was the primary source of instability. This he said she said dynamic over parental fitness, layered on top of the man's acute mental health crisis, created a legal and emotional quagmire for the responding officers. They were not just dealing with a domestic assault, but a deeply dysfunctional family system where the child's welfare was precariously balanced between two struggling parents. The police had to navigate these conflicting accounts while de-escalating an active threat, all with the safety of a small child hanging in the balance.
I don't feel comfortable her taking the baby by herself.
But you're good to have the child by yourself?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's how they got it. He can have the baby by himself, but if they are together, someone has to be. They cannot be together alone with the baby.
For us to stay separated with the children and be supervised.
The culmination of the standoff was the man's final, devastating psychological break. As officers calmly attempted to negotiate the safe return of the child to the mother, the man's fragile composure completely disintegrated. He began to voice his profound despair, viewing the intervention not as help, but as the end of his world. He equated being arrested with losing his child forever, repeatedly stating that a jail sentence would be a life sentence, stripping him of the one thing that kept him alive. His suicidal ideations, previously expressed through the news video, resurfaced with raw intensity. He declared that he was ready to die, challenging the officers to take him to jail and end his suffering. This was the moment his internal war became external, a heartbreaking display of a man utterly broken by his illness. His family, he claimed, did not care about him, and this final confrontation was the proof. He saw his father's actions and his partner's fear not as reactions to his violence, but as an ultimate abandonment. Faced with an individual who was a clear danger to himself and others, the police transitioned from de-escalation to intervention. After ensuring the baby was safely with its mother, they took the man into custody. Even in this moment, his anguish was palpable. He spoke of his father's words from the previous night, who, upon hearing of his son's suicidal thoughts, had allegedly told him to just go do it then. This perceived final rejection from his own father fueled his sense of utter hopelessness. The officers, recognizing the severity of his mental state, handled him with a degree of compassion, assuring him that he would be taken for a mental health evaluation. As he was placed in the back of the police car, the full weight of the day's events settled. The final screen listing his numerous charges, wanton endangerment, burglary, assaults as a stark legal epilogue. Yet the most telling charge was the last, arrest for being mentally ill and a danger to self or others. It crystallized the fact that this was not a story of simple criminality, but a profound tragedy rooted in untreated and overwhelming mental illness.
You ought to be ashamed.
Robbie.
This is happening in front of my boy.
Here.
Y'all will never see him again.
Robbie.
Calm down.
Never.
Calm down. Calm down.
I'm calm, man. I'm ready.